The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Zethkar's words echoed through the vast hall. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated pods, their various forms of breathing apparatus creating a soft symphony of mechanical whispers. The holographic display at the center showed devastating images of worlds burning under the relentless assault of the Vex Thule Empire. "The Outer Rim colonies have fallen," Zethkar announced, his scaled hands trembling as he manipulated the controls. "Kepler 442b, Wolf 359c, and the entire Proxima system are now under enemy control. The Vexus Thule advance continues toward our core worlds." Admiral Thane, the Altarian fleet commander, stood up from his pod. His blue-skinned face showed the exhaustion of endless battles. "We have lost 60% of our combined fleets. Our remaining ships cannot hold the next wave of attacks. The Vex Thule war machines are too powerful, too numerous." Murmurs of despair rippled through the assembly. The war had been raging for 3 standard galactic years. What began as border skirmishes had escalated into a fight for the very survival of galactic civilization. The Vex Thule Empire, emerging from the dark regions beyond the galactic rim, brought with them technology that seemed almost supernatural in its destructive capability. "What about the humans?" A small voice piped up from the Zelian delegation pod. The chamber erupted in a mixture of laughter and groans. Ambassador Veltar of the Corvani hegemony waved his forearms dismissively. "The humans? They have been neutral since the war began. Their representatives made it clear they want no part in galactic conflicts. They are too young, too inexperienced," added General Corax of the Draconian Republic. "They have only been in space for 2 of their centuries. What could they possibly contribute against an enemy that has defeated civilizations with 10,000 years of military experience?" Zethkar raised his hand for silence. "Actually, the human delegation sent a message this morning. They are requesting an emergency session to address the council. Now they want to talk?" Admiral Thane's voice carried bitter irony. "When we are on the brink of total defeat?" The massive doors at the far end of the chamber opened with a deep rumble. 3 humans walked in, their simple black uniforms stark against the elaborate ceremonial garments worn by other species. The lead human, a woman with graying hair and calm eyes, stepped to the central podium without ceremony. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "I bring a message from humanity regarding our participation in this conflict." The Corvani representative leaned forward. "If you wish to offer humanitarian aid, Admiral, we appreciate the gesture. But we need military assistance." Admiral Chen's expression remained neutral. "We are not here to offer aid. We are here to inform you that humanity will be entering this war." A stunned silence followed. It was broken by General Corax's harsh laugh. "With what? Your tiny fleet of primitive vessels? The Vexus Thule have warships the size of small moons. We are aware of their capabilities," Chen replied. "We have been observing this conflict since it began. We have studied Vex Thule tactics, analyzed their technology, and evaluated their strategic patterns." Ambassador Veltar's arms gestured impatiently. "Observation is not action, Admiral. Our scouts report a new Vex Thule battle group approaching the Centauri sector. They will arrive in 6 standard hours. Can your human ship stop them?" Admiral Chen touched a device on her wrist. The chamber's holographic display changed, showing a real-time tactical map of the Centauri sector. Red dots marked the approaching Vex's Thule fleet, while blue indicators showed the remaining Allied forces. The enemy battle group consists of 1 dreadnought, 4 heavy cruisers, and 12 destroyer escorts, Chen stated matter-of-factly. They are following a standard Vex Thule attack formation. Standard formation that has destroyed everything we have thrown at it, Admiral Thane pointed out grimly. Chen nodded. "Yes. It is quite effective against conventional galactic military doctrine. However, humans do not follow conventional galactic military doctrine." The second human, a young man with lieutenant's stripes, stepped forward and handed Chen a data pad. She glanced at it and looked up at the assembly. "I have just received confirmation that human forces are now in position. We will engage the Vex-Thul battle group in approximately 4 hours. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, some demanding to know where these human forces had come from, others insisting that humanity was committing suicide. Zethkar's voice boomed over the noise. Admiral Chen, with respect, your species has never fought a space battle of this magnitude. The Vex-Thul have weapons that can crack planets. Are you certain you understand what you are facing? Admiral Chen's calm expression never wavered. Ambassador, for the past 3 years, while the galaxy has been at war, humanity has not been idle. We have been preparing. We have been learning. And we have been building. Building what? General Corax demanded. Ships, Chen replied simply. Weapons. Strategies. We have built tools specifically designed to fight this enemy. The Altarian admiral shook his head. Even if you have built new ships, you lack experience. Space combat is not something you can learn from observation. It requires instinct, timing, the ability to adapt in split seconds. For the first time, Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Admiral Thane, you assume we have no experience in warfare. This is incorrect. Humans have been fighting wars for our entire recorded history. We have fought on land, on sea, in the air, and in space. We have fought with sticks and stones, with nuclear weapons, and with technologies you have never seen. She paused, letting her words sink in. What we lack is experience in galactic warfare. But warfare itself? We wrote the book on it. The third human, an older man with colonel's insignia, spoke for the first time. The difference between human warfare and galactic warfare is simple. You fight to defeat your enemies. We fight to destroy them completely. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence carried a different weight. There was something in the human's demeanor, a cold confidence that made even the most battle-hardened aliens uncomfortable. Admiral Chen looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each delegation. In 5 hours, you will see what happens when humanity enters a war. We suggest you observe carefully. You may learn something. Without another word, the 3 humans turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a room full of confused and apprehensive alien representatives. Outside, the countdown to the Vex-Thul attack continued, and somewhere in the darkness of space, human forces prepared to reveal themselves to the galaxy. The command center aboard the Allied flagship Harmony buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from every major galactic species crowded around holographic displays, watching the approaching Vex-Thul battle group with growing dread. The enemy formation moved through space like a pack of predators, their massive ships bristling with weapons that had already claimed countless worlds. Admiral Thane stood before the main tactical display, his blue face grim. Enemy formation maintaining course towards Centauri Prime. ETA. 2 hours, 37 minutes. He turned to address the assembled officers. All remaining Allied fleets have been ordered to fall back to defensive positions around the core worlds. What about the humans? Asked Captain Velnari of the Zelian Defense Corps. Have we had any communication from their forces? Nothing. General Corax replied. His scaled arms crossed. Our sensors show no human ships in the sector. Perhaps they realized the futility of their position and withdrew. Commander Yithral of the Corvani shook her head. The humans were very confident. Too confident. Either they have something we don't know about, or they are about to learn a very painful lesson. The tactical officer, a young Altarian named Subcommander Reth, looked up from his console. Sir, I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures on the edge of the system. Very faint, almost like sensor ghosts. Admiral Thane moved to examine the readings. Could be stellar interference. The Centauri system has always had unusual electromagnetic properties. Wait, Reth said, his voice rising with excitement. I'm getting multiple contacts. They're everywhere. The main display suddenly came alive with new icons. Blue markers appeared throughout the system, seemingly materializing from empty space. At first, there were dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of contacts surrounding the Vex-Thul formation in a complex three-dimensional web. "That's impossible," General Corax whispered. "Where did they all come from?" Admiral Thane was studying the sensor data with growing amazement. "The energy signatures. They're human. All of them. But how did they get so close without being detected?" On the communication channels, a familiar voice crackled to life. "Allied Command. This is Admiral Chen. Human forces are now in position and beginning engagement protocols." "Admiral Chen," Thane responded quickly, "we count over 3,000 contacts. Is that accurate?" "That is correct. The first human battle fleet consists of 3,247 vessels of various classes." The assembled alien officers exchanged stunned glances. Captain Velnari spoke what they were all thinking. 3,000 ships? How is that possible? Our intelligence suggested humanity had maybe 50 combat-capable vessels. Chen's voice carried a note of amusement. Your intelligence was observing our patrol fleets. The ships you counted were designed to be seen. Our main fleet has been under construction in hidden facilities throughout human space. On the display, the human ships began to move. Unlike the massive, lumbering vessels favored by galactic civilizations, the human ships were smaller, faster, and moved with a precision that seemed almost organic. They flowed around the Vex-Thul formation like a school of fish surrounding a whale. "Admiral," Subcommander Reth called out, "the Vex-Thul are responding to the human presence. They're breaking formation and moving to engage." The alien observers watched in fascination as the enemy fleet, which had maintained perfect formation throughout 3 years of conquest, suddenly scattered into individual combat groups. The human fleet's positioning had somehow forced them to abandon their most effective tactical doctrine. "Clever," Admiral Thane admitted. "The humans have negated the Vex-Thul formation advantage. But those ships are still heavily armed and armored. I don't see how smaller vessels can penetrate their defenses." As if in response to his words, the human ships opened fire. But instead of the massive energy beams or torpedo salvos typical of galactic warfare, they unleashed something entirely different. Streams of what appeared to be tiny projectiles erupted from the human vessels, moving at incredible velocities toward their targets. "What kind of weapons are those?" General Corax asked. Admiral Chen's voice came over the channel again. "Kinetic accelerators. We call them railguns. They fire solid projectiles at significant percentages of light speed." The first impacts were devastating. The tiny human projectiles, traveling at relativistic velocities, struck Vex-Thul shields with the force of small nuclear weapons. The enemy shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb explosive impacts, were completely unprepared for the physics-defying kinetic assault. "Their shields are failing," Reth reported in amazement. "The human weapons are punching straight through." But the Vex-Thul were not helpless. Their massive guns began returning fire, and the first human casualties appeared on the display as red indicators. However, for every human ship destroyed, the aliens noticed something remarkable. The remaining human vessels immediately adjusted their positions and tactics to compensate. "They're learning," Captain Velnari observed. "In real time, they're adapting to enemy fire patterns." "More than that," Admiral Thane said, studying the tactical patterns. "They're communicating with incredible efficiency. Look at their coordination. It's like they're operating as a single organism." The battle intensified as the Vex-Thul dreadnought, a ship the size of a small city, brought its main weapons to bear. The massive vessel's primary cannon, capable of cracking planetary crusts, fired directly into the densest concentration of human ships. The beams swept through space, destroying dozens of human vessels in seconds. But even as the attack continued, the human fleet was already moving. Ships that had been scattered by the attack reformed into new configurations, approaching the dreadnought from angles that its massive guns could not effectively target. "They're using the enemy's size against them," General Corax realized. "The Vex-Thul dreadnought is so large it cannot track fast-moving targets at close range." Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the communications again. "Allied observers, you may want to prepare for EMP effects. We are initiating Phase 2 of the engagement." Phase 2? Admiral Thane asked. What is Phase 2? Instead of answering, Chen issued orders to her fleet. All hunter-killer groups, execute Pattern Omega. Nuclear authorization is granted. The alien observers watched in shock as hundreds of human ships suddenly accelerated to incredible velocities, diving directly toward the Vex Thul vessels. At first it appeared to be a suicide attack. But at the last possible moment, each ship released a small object and veered away. Nuclear weapons. Subcommander Reth said quietly. They're using nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. But these were not the crude atomic weapons that most species had abandoned millennia ago. The human nuclear devices were precision instruments, designed to detonate at specific distances and angles to maximize damage to enemy systems while minimizing collateral effects. The explosions created brilliant flashes of light throughout the battlefield. When the radiation cleared, the Vex Thul formation was in chaos. Their shields were down. Their weapon systems were damaged, and their communication networks were disrupted by electromagnetic pulses. Incredible, Admiral Thane breathed. They've disabled the entire enemy fleet in less than an hour. But the humans were not finished. As the Vex's Thul ships struggled to restore their systems, the human fleet regrouped and began the final phase of their attack. Instead of the chaotic swarm tactics they had used initially, the human ships now moved in perfect formation, delivering precisely targeted strikes to critical enemy systems. Admiral Chen's voice came over the channel one final time. Allied Command. Vex Thul battle group has been neutralized. Total engagement time: 4 hours, 53 minutes. Human casualties: 237 vessels. Enemy casualties: complete fleet destruction. The command center fell silent. In less than 5 hours, humanity had accomplished what the combined galactic fleets had failed to do in 3 years of warfare. They had not just defeated a Vex Thul battle group, they had utterly destroyed it. Admiral Thane stared at the tactical display, where only human ships now moved among the debris of their enemies. How? He asked quietly. Chen's response was simple but profound. We did not try to fight them the way you fight them. We fought them the way humans fight. And Admiral, this was just one battle group. We're just getting started. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened just 12 hours after the Battle of Centauri. News of the human victory had spread throughout civilized space faster than any official communication network could carry it. Representatives who had dismissed humanity as inexperienced newcomers now looked at Admiral Chen with a mixture of awe and fear. Ambassador Zethkar stood at the central podium, his scales shifting colors in a display of barely controlled emotion. The reports we have received seem almost impossible to believe. In 5 hours, human forces completely destroyed a Vex Thul battle group that our combined fleets could not even slow down. Admiral Thane rose from his delegation pod, his blue face showing exhaustion and confusion. Admiral Chen, our tactical analysts have reviewed the battle recordings, your strategies, your weapons, your coordination. Nothing follows established galactic military doctrine. How did you develop these capabilities? Admiral Chen stood calmly at the human delegation platform. Behind her, the 2 other human officers maintained their silent, professional demeanor. The answer is simple, Admiral. We studied your failures. The chamber erupted in angry murmurs, but Chen continued without pause. For 3 years, we watched as galactic civilization fought the Vex Thul using the same tactics, the same strategies, the same thinking that had governed warfare in this galaxy for millennia. And for 3 years, you lost. General Corax's scaled fists clenched. Our military traditions have served us well for thousands of years. Against each other, Chen replied. Your traditions were developed for fighting other galactic species, all of whom think in similar ways, use similar technologies, and follow similar strategic principles. The Vex Thul are different. They required a different approach. Captain Velnari leaned forward in her pod. What kind of approach? Total warfare, the human colonel said, speaking for the first time since the battle. Not the limited conflicts you are accustomed to. but the complete application of military force designed to utterly destroy the enemy's ability to fight. Ambassador Veltar of the Corvani gestured with all four arms. But at what cost? Our intelligence reports suggest you lost nearly 250 ships in that single engagement. Admiral Chen nodded. 237 vessels. To be precise. Each one crewed by volunteers who understood the risks. Volunteers? Sub-Commander Reth, who had been observing the human tactics during the battle, looked confused. You mean they chose to fly ships into battle against impossible odds? Every human in the fleet volunteered, Chen confirmed. When we explained the mission parameters and the probability of casualties, we had 10 times more volunteers than we had ships. The assembled aliens fell silent, trying to process this information. The concept of beings willingly accepting near-certain death for strategic objectives was foreign to most galactic cultures. Zethkar spoke carefully. Admiral, our societies have evolved beyond such primitive concepts. We fight when necessary, but we do not glorify death. Chen's expression remained neutral. We do not glorify death, Ambassador. We accept it as a tool when no other tool will suffice. The Vex Thul represent an existential threat to all life in this galaxy. Against such an enemy, half measures ensure defeat. And what exactly do you propose? Admiral Thane asked. The Vex Thul have hundreds of battle groups, thousands of ships. Even if you could defeat them all using these tactics, the casualties would be enormous. For the first time since entering the chamber, Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a reassuring expression. Admiral, you are thinking too small. We are not planning to defeat their fleets. We are planning to end their civilization. The words hung in the air like a physical weight. Representative after representative stared at the human delegation, uncertain they had heard correctly. End their civilization? Zethkar whispered. What do you mean? The young human lieutenant stepped forward and activated a holographic display. The chamber filled with images of star charts, showing the known extent of Vex Thul territory in the galactic rim. Human intelligence has identified the Vex Thul homeworld, the lieutenant announced. We know the location of their central command structure, their primary shipyards, and their core population centers. General Korak stood up abruptly. That information has been classified at the highest levels. How could you possibly have obtained it? While you have been fighting their fleets, we have been infiltrating their space, Chen replied. For 2 years, human reconnaissance teams have been mapping Vex Thul territory, studying their society, and identifying critical targets. Infiltrating, Captain Velnari's voice cracked slightly. The Vex Thul scan all approaching vessels. Their detection systems are incredibly sophisticated. The human colonel's smile matched his admiral's cold expression. They scan for ships. They do not scan for individual humans in stealth pods, traveling at minimal power and using passive sensors only. Admiral Thane slowly sank back into his pod. You sent individual humans into Vex Thul space? The risk of detection, of capture, was acceptable, Chen finished. 147 reconnaissance missions were conducted. 31 operatives did not return. The information they gathered will allow us to end this war permanently. Ambassador Veltar's arms trembled as he spoke. You are talking about genocide. No, Chen replied firmly. We are talking about the complete destruction of a military machine that seeks to destroy every other form of life in the galaxy. The Vex Thul have shown no interest in diplomacy, no willingness to coexist, and no capacity for anything except conquest. They are a cancer that must be removed. But their civilian populations, Zethkar protested. Surely there are non-combatants among them. The human lieutenant manipulated the display, showing detailed intelligence reports. Vex Thul society has no civilian population. Every member of their species is born into the military hierarchy. Their entire civilization is organized around conquest and expansion. They literally cannot conceive of peaceful coexistence. Admiral Thane studied the intelligence data with growing amazement. This level of detail, you must have had operatives deep within their territory for months. 18 months, Chen confirmed. And some are still there, waiting for the signal to begin the final phase. Final phase? General Korax asked. Though his expression suggested he was not certain, he wanted to know the answer. Admiral Chen touched her wrist device, and the display changed to show a tactical overview of human fleet deployments. Blue markers appeared throughout the galaxy, indicating human forces in positions no one had suspected they could reach. The 5th Human Battle Fleet is currently positioned at the edge of Vexthul home territory, she announced. The 2nd and 3rd Fleets are moving to cut off their primary supply lines. The 4th Fleet is preparing to neutralize their advanced shipyards. The scope of the operation was staggering. The humans had not just built a massive fleet. They had positioned it throughout enemy space without anyone, including their supposed allies, detecting the movement. This is impossible, Admiral Thane breathed. The logistics alone. How did you move so many ships so far without being detected? Human ships are designed differently than galactic vessels, the colonel explained. We prioritize stealth and speed over size and firepower. Our vessels can travel for months without refueling, operate with minimal energy signatures, and remain undetected in regions where your ships would be spotted immediately. Zethkar looked around the chamber at his fellow representatives. What you are describing is not a battle. It is an extermination campaign. Admiral Chen nodded. Yes, it is. The Vexthul have demonstrated that they cannot be defeated through conventional warfare. They cannot be negotiated with, contained, or deterred. They can only be destroyed, and in approximately 6 standard hours, that destruction will begin. The chamber fell into absolute silence. The magnitude of what the humans had planned, the scope of their preparations, and the cold efficiency of their strategy left the assembled aliens speechless. Finally, Admiral Thane spoke. And if we object? If the Galactic Council formally opposes this action? Chen's expression never changed. Then you will oppose it, but you will not stop it. This operation has been planned for too long, involves too many assets, and addresses too critical a threat to galactic survival to be cancelled because of political considerations. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each delegation. The Vexthul War will end today. When it is over, humanity will withdraw to our own space and resume our previous non-interference policy. We have no interest in galactic politics or territory. We simply refuse to allow our species to be destroyed by an enemy you could not defeat. Without waiting for a response, Admiral Chen and her officers turned and walked out of the chamber. As the massive doors closed behind them, the representatives of 47 galactic civilizations sat in stunned silence, realizing that they had just witnessed the end of an era and the beginning of something entirely new.